classroom was noisy, filled with the sounds of students talking, laughing, and moving around. The sun shone through the windows, casting warm light across the desks. But there was an energy in the room that made it hard to focus. Among the students, there was one boy who sat quietly near the back. He didn't speak much, and most of the time he kept to himself. He was not the type to seek attention, and he often went unnoticed in the chaos of the classroom. The teacher was walking around, checking homework and calling out answers. She had a reputation for being strict but also for having a playful side. Sometimes she would make jokes at the students' expense, and the class would laugh, though not everyone enjoyed it. Today, she seemed to be in a particularly teasing mood, smiling as she observed the students' movements. The boy at the back of the class kept his eyes on his notebook, pretending to be busy, but he could feel the teacher's gaze on him. He hoped she wouldn't notice him because being called out in front of the class made him anxious. He had always been shy, and performing or speaking in front of a crowd was something that terrified him. He kept his head low and tried to disappear into his thoughts. But the teacher had a different idea. She walked over to his desk with a mischievous grin and said, "Why don't you show us what you can do?" The boy looked up, confused and nervous. I don't know what you mean," he mumbled. The teacher laughed softly. "Come on, don't be shy. Just a little performance. I'm sure everyone would love to see it. It will be fun." He shook his head quickly. "No, I can't. I'm not good at that." The class had started to pay attention now, sensing that something interesting was about to happen. Some students whispered to each other, trying to guess what the teacher meant. A few snickered quietly, expecting that the boy would be embarrassed. The boy felt his stomach tighten. He hated being the center of attention, and the idea of performing in front of all these people made him want to vanish. The teacher crouched down a little, trying to be encouraging. "I'm not asking for perfection. Just a little demonstration, maybe something simple. You might surprise us all." He hesitated, glancing at his classmates. Some faces were curious, some were teasing. He could feel their eyes on him, waiting for something to happen. He swallowed hard, trying to find the courage to speak. His heart was pounding so fast that it felt like it might jump out of his chest. Finally, with a shaky breath, he nodded slightly. "Okay," he whispered. The class erupted in quiet laughter and whispers. The teacher smiled, clearly pleased with herself, and motioned for him to go to the front. He stood up slowly, feeling the eyes of every student following his every move. Each step felt heavy, and the floor seemed to stretch endlessly before him. He could hear a few giggles and whispers, but he tried to focus on the task at hand. When he reached the front, he looked at the teacher, who gave him an encouraging nod. She had expected a funny or awkward moment, but she didn't know what he was capable of. He fumbled slightly, trying to calm his hands and gather his thoughts. The class was silent now, waiting, and the pressure was immense. He took another deep breath and began. At first, his movements were hesitant and unsure, but as he continued, something shifted. He started to move with more confidence, more rhythm and more control. The nervous energy that had held him back began to transform into focus. He didn't know where the courage had come from, but he felt a strange clarity as he continued. The students started to notice. Some leaned forward in their seats, their laughter replaced with curiosity. Whispers turned into quiet murmurs of surprise. The teacher's eyes widened slightly, and she straightened up, realizing that this was no ordinary performance. The boy, who had seemed so shy and timid just moments ago, was showing a skill that no one had expected. He wasn't just performing, he was captivating the room. Each movement, each note, or each word, depending on the type of talent, flowed naturally, as if he had been born to do this. The boy had no idea that his hidden talent would emerge in such a public way, but in that moment, it didn't matter. All the fear and anxiety were gone, replaced by a focus so sharp that nothing else existed. The class watched in amazement. The students who had whispered and snickered were now silent, unable to look away. The boy's performance was not only skillful but also filled with emotion. It was clear that he had poured his heart into what he was doing, and it had a powerful effect on everyone in the room. The teacher, who had planned this as a joke, now realized she had underestimated him. Her smile faded into a look of admiration and surprise. She had expected something funny, something awkward, but instead, she was witnessing genuine talent. The boy had taken a moment that was supposed to embarrass him and turned it into a demonstration of skill and courage. When he finished, the room was silent for a heartbeat before it erupted into applause. Some students stood up, clapping enthusiastically, while others cheered and whistled. The boy's face turned red, not from embarrassment, but from the overwhelming reaction of the class. He had never received so much attention, and it was both thrilling and humbling. The teacher stepped forward, clapping along with the students. "Well," she said, smiling broadly, "that was better than I could have imagined. I think we all learned something today." The boy felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had faced his fear, performed in front of the class, and discovered that he was capable of far more than he had ever imagined. The moment was transformative not just for him, but for the classroom as a whole. Everyone had witnessed something unexpected and remarkable, and the energy in the room had changed forever. As he returned to his seat, he could feel the eyes of his classmates on him, but now they were filled with respect and admiration rather than judgment. A few students approached him quietly, offering congratulations and asking questions about how he had done it. The boy smiled softly, still processing everything that had just happened. From that day on, the boy was seen in a new light. He was no longer the quiet, unnoticed student in the back. People knew he had a talent and they wanted to see more. The teacher, too, had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate someone based on appearances. Sometimes, hidden abilities lie in the most unexpected places, waiting for the right moment to shine. The boy sat at his desk, a quiet smile on his face. He realized that even though the performance had started as a joke, it had become a turning point in his life. He had faced fear, embraced his talent, and left an unforgettable impression on everyone around him. It was a moment he would remember forever. The day when being forced to perform turned into an extraordinary discovery of skill and confidence. After that day, the classroom felt different. The boy who had always been quiet now had a kind of respect from his classmates that he had never experienced before. People still whispered and laughed sometimes, but there was also curiosity in their eyes. They wanted to know more about him, about what he could do, and how he had surprised everyone. The boy walked through the school halls a little differently now. There was a new awareness around him, a sense that he had become someone unexpected in the eyes of others. The next few days, he tried to stay as normal as possible. He returned to his usual routines, keeping his head down in class and quietly doing his work. But the memory of performing in front of everyone lingered in his mind. Each time he thought about it, he felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. He had faced a fear that had always held him back, and now he knew that he could do things he had once thought impossible. His classmates occasionally mentioned his performance, often in hushed tones at first. "Did you see what he did?" they would ask each other. "I never knew he could do that." The boy would just shrug, feeling a little embarrassed, and sometimes tried to change the subject. He was not used to being the center of attention, and even though he had performed so well, he felt awkward with all the attention he was getting. The teacher, however, saw something more. She realized that this was not a one-time thing or a fluke. The boy had genuine talent, and she wanted to encourage it. She spoke to him quietly after class one day. "You did really well the other day," she said with a warm smile. "I think you have something special. Have you ever thought about exploring this more?" The boy hesitated. He had always kept his abilities to himself, afraid of standing out or being judged. "I don't know," he murmured. "I've never done it in front of anyone before." The teacher nodded. "I understand. But sometimes we don't know how far we can go until we try. You have a gift. Don't hide it." Her words stayed with him. He began to think about what it would mean to develop his skill, to take it seriously. For the first time, he considered that maybe he didn't have to be invisible, that maybe he could do something meaningful with what he could do. The idea was both exciting and terrifying, but it sparked a curiosity he couldn't ignore. During recess, some students approached him cautiously. "Hey, can you show us that thing you did the other day?" one of them asked. He felt a pang of nervousness but also a little thrill. He hesitated, looking at the expectant faces. Slowly, he agreed. They all gathered in a small circle outside, and he demonstrated a small part of what he had done in class. It wasn't a full performance, but enough to give them a sense of his talent. The reaction was immediate. They clapped and cheered, laughing in awe. "Wow, you're amazing," they said. "I didn't know you could do that." The boy felt his cheeks warm, but a small smile formed. For the first time, he realized that sharing his talent could be a positive experience, not something to fear. Word spread quickly. Other students began to take notice, asking questions and expressing admiration. Some even wanted to practice with him or learn from him. The boy found himself surrounded by new energy and attention, and while it was overwhelming at first, he started to enjoy it. He realized that the fear he had felt before was not about performing itself, but about what others might think. Once he saw that people respected him and appreciated his skill, the fear began to fade. The teacher continued to support him. She occasionally asked him to demonstrate in class or participate in small activities that highlighted his abilities. Each time, he grew a little more confident, learning to control his nerves and focus on what he could do rather than what others might think. The classroom, once a place of anxiety for him, became a space of growth and discovery. At home, he also began to spend more time practicing. He had always done this privately, but now he did so with a sense of purpose. He experimented, tried new techniques, and pushed himself beyond what he had thought possible. Slowly, he began to see improvement, and the excitement of growth fueled him further. He started to dream bigger, imagining what he could achieve if he continued to develop his talent. Despite the growing confidence, there were still moments of doubt. Sometimes, when he thought about performing in front of a large group, his heart raced and his palms grew sweaty. But each time he faced these fears, he discovered that he was stronger than he had imagined. With each small step, he learned to trust himself more and more. His classmates continued to surprise him as well. Some who had once teased or ignored him now treated him with respect. They asked for tips, offered encouragement, and even defended him when others tried to belittle him. The boy began to feel a sense of belonging that he had rarely experienced before. He was no longer invisible. He had become someone whose presence mattered. The teacher watched all of this with pride. She had started it as a joke, never imagining the impact it would have. But now she saw that a small nudge, a challenge presented at the right moment, could unlock potential that might otherwise remain hidden. She continued to guide him gently, giving advice, encouragement, and opportunities to perform in safe, supportive environments. Over time, the boy realized that the experience had changed him in more ways than one. He had gained confidence, discovered a passion, and formed connections with classmates who had once been distant. The fear that had once defined him was no longer the dominant force in his life. He had learned that facing challenges, even when uncomfortable, could lead to unexpected rewards. By the end of the week, he had performed several times in small groups, each time feeling a little braver and more capable. The classroom had become a place where he could shine without fear, where his talents were acknowledged and celebrated. The boy had transformed from a quiet, unnoticed student into someone who was not only respected, but also admired for his courage and skill. It was a slow journey, filled with small steps, doubts, and moments of hesitation. But each step built upon the last, and by the time the week ended, he had grown in ways he could not have imagined. The boy understood now that talent alone was not enough. It was courage, practice, and the willingness to take risks that truly allowed him to flourish. As he left school that Friday afternoon, he felt a quiet pride within himself. He had faced a challenge that once seemed impossible, and in doing so had discovered new strength. He looked forward to the future with a sense of excitement, knowing that this was just the beginning of a journey that could take him far beyond what he had ever dreamed. And though the classroom had started the week as a place of fear, it had become a space of growth, recognition, and the discovery of potential that had long been hidden inside him. The boy woke up one morning with a sense of anticipation he had never felt before. It wasn't just any day at school. Today he would perform in front of the entire class again, this time without the element of surprise. He had practiced quietly, refining his movements, and had learned to calm his nerves. But still, as he walked into the classroom, a familiar flutter of anxiety filled his chest. The teacher greeted him with a warm smile. "I hope you're ready today," she said softly. "Everyone is looking forward to seeing you again." He nodded, trying to steady his breath. This time, he didn't feel like a victim of a joke. Instead, he felt a quiet determination. He had faced fear before, and he knew he had something valuable to share. But performing for the whole class was different. The stakes felt higher. There was a pressure to be better, to impress, to live up to what he had shown before. The students sensed it too. There was a low hum of conversation at first, but as the boy moved to the front of the room, the chatter slowly died down. Everyone watched with curiosity and excitement. This was no longer a simple classroom moment. It was something more. The boy felt all eyes on him, but instead of shrinking away, he took a deep breath and focused on what he could control. His own actions. He started slowly, carefully. The first few steps were measured, the first few notes tentative. He could hear the faint gasps and whispers from the students. There was a tension in the air, a mix of anticipation and surprise. He reminded himself that this was not about pleasing everyone, but about expressing what he had inside. Gradually, he felt his body and mind align, and a calm confidence began to settle over him. As he continued, his movements became smoother, more fluid. Each action seemed to flow naturally, and the room transformed. Students who had been whispering now leaned forward, captivated. The boy could feel the energy in the room shifting. What had started as a simple performance was evolving into something remarkable. He wasn't just repeating what he had done before. He was creating something new in that moment, something that reflected his own unique skill and creativity. The teacher watched in awe. What had been meant as a playful experiment was now a full demonstration of talent. The boy's skill was undeniable, and it was clear that he had been hiding it all this time. The room, once filled with casual chatter and jokes, now held a deep silence, broken only by the sound of his performance. Each student was engaged, their eyes fixed on him, their attention completely captured. The boy felt a sense of liberation he had never known. In that space, with everyone watching, he was free from the doubts that had held him back for so long. He felt the fear slip away, replaced by a pure focus on what he was doing. His hands moved with precision, his voice or instrument, depending on the talent, resonated with clarity, and every motion seemed intentional and powerful. He noticed the reactions of his classmates. Some were wide-eyed with amazement. Others whispered quietly to each other in disbelief. A few students who had previously doubted him now looked at him with genuine respect. The boy realized that he had the power to change perceptions with his talent. It was an incredible feeling, one that mixed pride with humility. He wasn't performing for applause or recognition. He was performing because it was a part of who he was, and that authenticity shone through. The teacher couldn't contain her admiration. She smiled broadly, clapping softly as he continued. She had witnessed many things in her years of teaching, but rarely had she seen a student surprise everyone in this way. It was a moment that would stay with her, and she knew it would stay with the student as well. She had given him a challenge as a joke, but he had taken it and turned it into something extraordinary. As the performance reached its peak, the boy felt a wave of energy. He had found a rhythm, a flow that connected him to the room. The students were no longer just watching. They were feeling the emotion and skill in what he was doing. The quiet whispers had turned into an almost reverent silence. He could see some students holding their breath, caught up in the moment. Others had small smiles of amazement, clearly moved by what they were witnessing. When he finally finished, there was a pause. The room seemed to hold its collective breath for a moment longer, as if no one could quite believe what they had just seen. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started as a few hesitant claps but quickly grew into full, enthusiastic cheering. Students were standing now, clapping and shouting in praise. The boy's face turned red, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. He had faced fear, embraced his talent, and the response had been overwhelming. The teacher stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride. "That was incredible," she said. "I knew you had something special. But this is beyond anything I imagined. You should be very proud of yourself." The boy nodded, still trying to catch his breath. He felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of accomplishment that went beyond words. He had done something that he had once thought impossible, and in doing so, he had not only impressed everyone but also discovered a deeper confidence in himself. After class, students gathered around him. They asked questions, complimented him, and wanted to know more about his skills. The boy answered quietly at first, still feeling shy, but gradually, he began to enjoy the conversation. He realized that people were genuinely interested, not just in the performance but in him as a person. It was a new experience, one that made him feel connected and valued in a way he had never known. The teacher continued to support him, offering guidance and encouragement. She suggested ways he could further develop his talent, invited him to participate in more structured activities, and always reminded him to stay true to himself. The boy felt grateful for her support. It was rare to find someone who believed in him so wholeheartedly, and he knew that her encouragement was helping him grow in ways he couldn't have achieved alone. Over the next few weeks, the boy's confidence grew. He practiced more intentionally, explored new techniques, and pushed the boundaries of his skill. Each performance, no matter how small, helped him refine his abilities and gain greater control. He also learned to manage his nerves, understanding that fear was a natural part of growth but did not have to hold him back. The impact on the classroom was noticeable. Students who had once been distant or dismissive now sought his advice and wanted to learn from him. The dynamic had shifted. He was no longer invisible or overlooked. His talent had created connections, respect, and a sense of community. The boy realized that performing was not just about showing skill. It was about sharing something meaningful, inspiring others, and building confidence in himself and those around him. By the end of the month, the boy had become a source of inspiration in the classroom. He had proven that hidden potential could emerge in surprising ways and that courage and practice could transform fear into something powerful. The performance that had begun as a simple challenge from a teacher had blossomed into a journey of growth, self-discovery, and recognition. He knew that this was only the beginning, that there were still many steps to take, and that his talent could take him far if he continued to nurture it. As he left school one afternoon, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The boy had faced his fears, shared his gift, and experienced the joy of surprising not only others but himself. The classroom, once a place of anxiety, had become a space of opportunity and discovery. He had learned that sometimes the most unexpected challenges could reveal the greatest strengths, and that hidden talent, when nurtured and shared, could change lives, not just his own, but the lives of everyone who witnessed it. The boy began to notice a change in how the classroom felt around him. He was no longer just the quiet student in the back who kept to himself. People were curious, attentive, and even a little excited to see him. He was approached more often by classmates, some of whom had once ignored him or made fun of him. Now they wanted to talk about his talent, ask questions, or even learn from him. It was a strange but welcome change, and the boy felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. The teacher, seeing his growing confidence, decided to create more opportunities for him to share his skill. She occasionally asked him to demonstrate in class or participate in small projects that allowed him to shine. Each time he performed, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement. But the more he shared, the more comfortable he became. The applause and admiration from classmates were no longer overwhelming. Instead, they became a source of motivation. One afternoon, during a special class activity, the teacher invited him to perform in front of the entire grade. The boy felt his stomach tighten. This was bigger than before. There would be more students, more eyes, more expectations. But he also felt ready. He had practiced, learned to focus, and discovered that the fear he had felt earlier could be managed. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, and the room fell quiet. He began slowly, as he had learned, easing into the performance with measured movements. But soon, the confidence he had built over the past weeks took over. Every motion was precise, every note or action deliberate. The students watched in awe, their expressions a mix of surprise and admiration. The boy felt a sense of flow, a rhythm that carried him forward, and for the first time, performing felt natural rather than nerve-wracking. By the time he finished, the applause was thunderous. Students cheered, some whistled, and others were genuinely amazed. The teacher stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride. She had expected a good performance, but what she witnessed exceeded all expectations. The boy had taken what had started as a small classroom demonstration and transformed it into a memorable event that left everyone inspired. Afterward, students crowded around him, asking questions and complimenting him. Some wanted to learn how he had practiced, others were curious about the techniques he used. The boy answered quietly at first, but gradually he began to enjoy the attention. He realized that sharing his talent wasn't just about performing. It was about connecting with others and inspiring them. In the days that followed, he became a quiet mentor for his classmates. Those who were interested in developing their own skills came to him for advice. He taught them what he had learned, encouraged them to practice, and shared tips on how to stay calm under pressure. Through this, he realized that his talent could do more than impress. It could help others grow and gain confidence. The teacher noticed this shift as well. She encouraged him to explore his leadership and mentorship potential. She suggested small group sessions where he could guide others in practice and technique. The boy initially felt nervous about this responsibility, but he soon embraced it. He discovered that helping others brought him satisfaction and strengthened his own abilities. One day, during a school event, he was asked to perform on stage in front of students from other grades. This was the biggest audience he had faced yet, and the pressure was intense. He felt the familiar nerves, but he remembered the steps that had helped him succeed before. Deep breaths, focusing on what he could control, and trusting his preparation. As he stepped onto the stage, he felt a calm determination settle over him. The performance was remarkable. His confidence, skill, and passion shone through, captivating the audience. Even students who had never seen him before were impressed. When he finished, the applause and cheers were overwhelming. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had faced his fears and shared his gift with a much larger audience. Back in the classroom, he noticed the ripple effect of his actions. Other students were inspired to try new things, step out of their comfort zones, and explore their own talents. The atmosphere in the school was more supportive and encouraging, a change that had started with one boy facing a challenge and discovering his potential. The teacher smiled, knowing that she had witnessed not just talent, but growth, leadership, and inspiration in action. The boy also realized that recognition brought responsibility. He understood that his skill was not just for himself. It could be used to encourage, teach, and uplift others. He began to approach practice with a sense of purpose beyond personal achievement. He wanted to refine his abilities, not just to perform, but to become a source of inspiration and support for his peers. Over time, his talent became a part of the school culture. Teachers and students alike looked forward to his performances, not as spectacles, but as demonstrations of dedication, skill, and courage. The boy had learned that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of hard work, confidence, and the willingness to share that made a true impact. As the weeks turned into months, the boy continued to grow. He faced new challenges, larger audiences, and more complex tasks. Each time, he approached them with the same focus, calm, and determination he had discovered during his first performance. The classroom and school environment had changed as well, becoming more supportive and encouraging, with students learning to appreciate each other's talents. The teacher watched these developments with quiet pride. She had initiated a playful challenge, never expecting it to evolve into a journey of growth, mentorship, and inspiration. The boy had not only discovered his own potential, but he had also become a catalyst for positive change in his school. His journey showed that courage, practice, and sharing talent could transform not just an individual, but the community around them. The boy reflected on his progress quietly, often thinking about how far he had come. He remembered the fear, the embarrassment, and the nervousness that had once dominated his days. Now, those feelings were replaced with confidence, purpose, and a sense of responsibility. He understood that talent was a gift, but courage and dedication were what allowed it to shine. And in sharing that gift, he had created connections, inspired others, and left a lasting mark on his peers and teachers alike. Over time, the boy's journey of discovery and growth began to have a lasting impact, not just on him, but on everyone around him. He had learned to embrace his talent, to face challenges with courage, and to share his abilities in a way that inspired others. The confidence he had gained in the classroom had spilled into other areas of his life, and he felt a sense of self-assurance that he had never known before. At school, students looked up to him not only for his talent, but also for his willingness to help and encourage others. Many had started to explore their own abilities, motivated by the boy's example. They practiced more, took small risks, and tried new things they had once been too afraid to attempt. The atmosphere of the school changed slowly but noticeably. Fear and hesitation gave way to curiosity and experimentation. The boy's courage had created a ripple effect, showing others that hidden potential could be uncovered if one was willing to step forward. The teacher continued to guide him, offering advice and encouragement at every opportunity. She had become more than just an instructor. She had become a mentor who helped him see beyond the classroom. She encouraged him to participate in school events, competitions, and community activities, where he could showcase his skills and inspire others. Each experience reinforced the lessons he had learned: that talent needed nurturing, that courage could overcome fear, and that sharing one's gifts could have a profound effect on others. The boy began to take these lessons to heart. He started to set small goals for himself, each one slightly more challenging than the last. He practiced diligently, refined his techniques, and learned to manage the pressure of performing. With every successful step, his confidence grew. The sense of pride he felt was not about being the best or receiving applause, but about knowing he had worked hard, faced his fears, and achieved something meaningful. Outside the classroom, the boy's transformation was also evident. He approached social interactions with more confidence and openness. He joined new clubs, participated in group activities, and volunteered to help in ways he never would have considered before. People noticed the change. Friends and teachers commented on his growth, and he felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his efforts were making a difference. Despite his growing confidence, the boy remained humble. He knew that talent alone was not enough. It was discipline, perseverance, and a willingness to share that truly made a difference. He remembered the initial fear he had felt when the teacher first asked him to perform, and he realized how far he had come since that day. Each challenge he faced had been an opportunity to grow, and each success had reinforced his belief in his own abilities. The impact of his journey was not limited to his immediate surroundings. Stories of his performances began to spread to other classes and grades. Students from different parts of the school wanted to see him perform, ask questions, and learn from him. He became a quiet source of inspiration, demonstrating that even someone who was once overlooked could rise to remarkable heights with courage and dedication. One day, the school organized a special event where students could showcase their talents to the wider community, including parents and visitors. The boy was invited to perform, and this time, the audience was much larger than he had ever faced before. He felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but he also felt prepared. He had practiced, learned to focus, and developed a sense of calm under pressure. As he stepped onto the stage, he took a deep breath and began. The performance was mesmerizing. Every movement, every note, every expression carried confidence and authenticity. The audience was captivated. Parents and visitors watched in awe, some whispering to each other, clearly impressed. Students cheered and clapped enthusiastically. The boy's talent had grown beyond the classroom, and it was clear that his journey of self-discovery had prepared him for this moment. When he finished, the applause was overwhelming, but he felt calm, satisfied, and grateful. He knew that this success was the result of his effort, courage, and the guidance he had received. After the event, many approached him, praising his performance and asking how he had developed his skills. The boy smiled, realizing that he had become a role model in ways he had never imagined. He shared his experiences humbly, encouraging others to explore their own talents, take risks, and face their fears. He emphasized that the journey was just as important as the performance itself, and that every small step counted. Back in the classroom, the boy noticed how much things had changed since the day he was forced to perform as a joke. What had started as an embarrassing challenge had transformed into a journey of growth, confidence, and influence. He had not only discovered his own potential but had also inspired others to discover theirs. The teacher's playful challenge had turned into a profound learning experience, one that shaped the boy's character and left a lasting impact on everyone around him. The boy reflected on his journey often. He remembered the fear, the hesitation, and the uncertainty that had once dominated his life. He realized that those feelings had been necessary, because they had taught him the value of courage and perseverance. Each performance, each interaction, each lesson had contributed to his growth. He had learned that facing challenges head-on, practicing diligently, and sharing one's gifts could lead to meaningful and lasting change. As the school year progressed, the boy continued to grow, both in skill and character. He embraced new challenges, sought opportunities to perform, and encouraged his peers to pursue their own talents. His confidence was balanced by humility, and his accomplishments inspired respect rather than envy. He had become a quiet leader, someone who showed by example what dedication and courage could achieve. The teacher observed these changes with quiet pride. She had seen many students pass through her classroom, but rarely had she witnessed such a transformation. The boy's journey demonstrated the power of encouragement, guidance, and opportunity. It was a reminder that potential often lies hidden, and that even a small nudge at the right time could unlock greatness. In the end, the boy understood that his journey was not just about talent or recognition. It was about growth, resilience, and the ability to influence others positively. He had learned to embrace challenges, face fear, and pursue excellence. He had discovered that his abilities could inspire others, build confidence, and create a sense of community. And he knew that the lessons he had learned would stay with him for the rest of his life. The boy walked through the school with a quiet sense of accomplishment. He no longer feared being noticed. He embraced it. He knew that his talent was not just for himself, but for the people who had witnessed his growth and had been inspired by it. Every smile, every word of encouragement, and every shared moment of learning reminded him of how far he had come. And though the journey had begun with a simple challenge, it had become a story of courage, talent, and lasting impact that would continue to shape his life and the lives of those around him.